WELSTech is a bi-weekly podcast exploring the intersections of technology and ministry. It is part of the podcast network sponsored by WELS, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Our show today is hosted by Martin Spriggs and Sally Draper.
Welcome back, everybody, to WELSTech, episode 690, and different today because Martin Spriggs is not introducing this podcast. It's me, Sally Draper, kind of in a solo role this week because Martin is attending a conference. But you wouldn't want to just hear from me, and so it worked out perfectly that it was one of our education technology weeks. And I'm happy to welcome to the podcast our semi-regular classroom technology correspondents back for the 2022-23 school year. And that would be Professor Rachel Feld from Martin Luther College and Jason Schmidt, who is going to tell me what his title is because I never remember it properly.
I'm the executive director of the Wisconsin Virtual School now, based out of CISA 9.
Thank you, Jason, and forgive me for not having that rolling off my tongue like I should.
That's all right. I keep changing, so it's fine.
Okay, good.
This one
Give
might
me a
stick.
little more time. Excellent. Yeah. And you know what, guys? If you could only sit in on the planning sessions for these podcasts, you would realize how exciting it is for us to have Jason and Rachel joining us, how much fun we have, and how excited we are to bring you this podcast. I think it's going to be really incredible. What do you guys think?
I think your definition of exciting is perhaps questionable, but
very good. Well, don't tell our listeners that. We're going to stick with the incredible idea, and I'm just going to say that we did pre-plan for the entire school year because we can pick dates in advance. We know when the podcast roll around where we focus on the educational technology topics with Rachel and Jason. And we realized this year, maybe for the first time ever, that there are 5 of those special podcasts coming up during the school year. And that led our creative juices to, we should have a theme around 5 things. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be incredible even?
I think it might have been better if it was spicy, but incredible will work.
Yeah, we'll play whatever hands we're dealt. Yeah, incredible works for me.
All right. So what we're alluding to with all our incredible references and even something spicy is the fact that we talked about 5 things, and the 5 things that floated to the top as we had that discussion were the 5 Incredibles. There are 5 family members in the Incredible family, and we thought we would focus each show on one of the Incredible strengths and kind of parallel education technology things that have those same kind of strengths. Okay, hopefully everybody followed that. That's really hard to explain. The other option that we were given was the Spice Girls, and I know nothing about Spice Girls, so we opted for Incredibles. That's going to be our thread or theme throughout this school year as we talk about education technology. And who better to start with than Mr. Incredible himself? And so there we were, the 4 of us. Martin was in on this discussion as well. And we were like, okay, there's Bob, there's Mr. Incredible. He's just got all this strength and stamina. He's super durable. He can take it, whatever. And how does that relate to education technology? And Rachel, I think the first thing that came to mind was the strength and stamina it's going to take you to complete your dissertation this year, maybe?
That is the first thing that came to mind. And then I think we quickly dismissed that as, we don't want to talk about that right now.
That's Rachel's
we'll
problem.
Talk about it later.
Yeah.
We'll wait until you finish, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of pressure to get it done before the end of the year.
Yes, just a little bit.
All right. So we wish you superhuman strength in that endeavor. And we shifted gears and instead thought we would talk about what's super strong in terms of education and technology, and that's quality instructional design. That's where we kind of landed. Instructional design with technology in mind, or focused on how technology supplements instruction. I think that's a good way to kind of lead into the topic, and maybe you guys can run with it from there, because I'm obviously not the expert in this area.
Run with or from?
Yes, whatever you want to choose.
Oh, I know Martin is sad that he's not here to enjoy this right now.
That's all right. He'll listen in and give us a hard time about it later.
So I know that one thing that teachers ask me all the time when presenting or trying to answer questions, help out, whatever it is how do we make these decisions? There are so many sources and tools and techniques and just all it's really overwhelming. And so where do we start? And for the longest time, I would point people towards the SAMR model, which was developed by Dr. Ruben Pentadora. And if you haven't, we did an episode about the SAMR model actually a while back. So if you're interested, you can go back in our archives. But basically that looked at tech usage is divided into 4 major categories, and that would be substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And so basically tech use can be a substitute for something. It can amplify something and make it better. And I always had a hard time defining the difference between modification and redefinition because
you're not the only one, Rachel. Yeah, that kind of seemed to go. It was going around all over the place.
Yeah.
Those upper 2 levels are just basically like doing what you did before and using technology to do something different. I always split it up into 2 spots, like so to simplify things a little bit.
Yeah. And actually the RAT model did that very well, but the acronym you get there isn't quite as nice as SAMR because rats, you don't really, I don't like rats, but maybe some people do. But recently, especially in work for one of the grad classes that I teach, came across the PICRAT model, which does have that rat in there, but at least we have pick first, so it's not all about rats. But it's a matrix, and it really helps to look at not just the teacher's use of the technology. Because I think it was very easy in the SAMR model to get focused on what the teacher was doing. And really you have to look at both sides of it. What's the teacher doing with the technology and what's the student doing? And so that's exactly what the PICRAT model does. It was developed by Dr. Royce Kimmons. I believe he's out in Utah. And in this basically tic-tac-toe square, along the bottom, you've got the RAT model, which is the teacher's use either replaces, amplifies, or transforms. So kind of taking that SAMR model and simplifying it into 3. And then going up and down, is that the x-axis or the y-axis?
That's the Y.
Okay. That's math. That was a long time ago.
I contributed to the show. Yay.
Good job, Sally. Along that y-axis, you have what the student's relationship to the tech is. And that's either passive, interactive, or creative. And I really like this because if you look at recent findings on screen time and how much tech time students should have in the classroom, most of that research will point more towards what's the purpose of the technology use versus how much. And so that passive technology use of watching YouTube videos, flipping through Netflix or your TikTok feed or whatever, those passive uses are not as great as the interactive uses or the creative uses. And so this model really helps teachers kind of see both what the tech is doing for them and for their students, with the goal of getting to that upper right corner.
Very good. Jason, when we were planning for this, you mentioned that you had followed a different model or framework. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when back in my technology integration days before I turned over to the dark side, I had been coaching teachers in the use of the Triple E framework. So Triple E is engage, enhance, and extend with when it comes to learning goals. So it's and they're meant to be some sort of interrelated kinds of concepts. So it's the technology. How does that help students understand things a little bit better, and and enhance the delivery of the content. And then the next part with the extension is how does the technology enable students to take their learning and apply it outside of the typical lesson framework. And then that engage piece is kind of the low-hanging fruit. Like, how do we get kids excited about learning and excited about coming to school and participating in all of that? So, things like time on task and motivation and getting them to be active social learners, right? So within this framework, we're looking at the way that we do things, and are we engaging students? Are we using technology to enhance the work that we're doing? Are we extending that learning outside of the classroom? And really, just making it a meaningful thing. Where this comes from is from an author that we've actually talked about like super long ago on the podcast. Like, I think, Sally, if we go back in the archives, it's probably like 400 episodes ago. I think it was one of the first ones that I participated in. But the author of the book is Liz Kolb. She wrote books like where she got kind of cut her teeth. She's from the University of Michigan, and she wrote books about cell phones in classrooms, and has kind of transitioned now towards this Triple E framework. So if you've seen the books Learning First, Technology Second, it's published by ISTE. That is something that she has put out now as kind of a way to think about these things. So, and hopefully, you guys are kind of picking up on like there's a lot of overlap between PICRAT and Triple E, right? So, when I was working with schools and working in districts, we had a lot of conversation around language, and I've heard I've used this phrase all over the place, but you got to pick your pony and ride it, right? So, if Rachel's on the PICRAT pony, then let's talk about things within that PICRAT framework. Goodness gracious, it's because Martin's not here to keep me like speaking English. That's, I think, what
apparently he has magic like that, huh?
Yeah, that's just what it is. We miss Martin. Not that Sally's not good, because Sally's awesome.
But I totally miss Martin. I get it.
So that piece of it, right? You pick your pony and ride it. Like, it just gives us a way to talk about these tools and the way that we're incorporating them into the classroom and into the work that we're doing. And Rachel, would you say that that's just kind of, would you agree with that observation, I guess?
I definitely agree. And I honestly think that's probably the biggest reason to use PICRAT or Triple E, or even going back to SAMR, whatever makes sense for your faculty. But yeah, that common language and kind of expectation that a model like this will set is really important in just understanding the role that technology is going to play in your school.
I'm kind of, like I said, on the outside of these discussions. I'm not in the classroom or assisting with the school specifically, but as I hear what you're saying, I kind of think back to the days when things were brand new. Let's say a tool like something that you would use to create content, a bulletin board type digital format. Do you guys have a favorite tool that you use for that kind of thing? If kids were doing a kind of pulling together different pieces to present a book report or something like that?
I would say
Google
Rachel
Slides.
would say Google Slides. Yep.
Yeah. So let's say
Good job.
Google Slides is brand new, and I'm a new teacher learning about it in the faculty in service. And I'm just like gonna have my kids put their thing on there and make it turn around and around and around because it's a cool thing. And wow, isn't that fun that you can rotate it or whatever? We're way down the road from there. We've got to learn the tools, but then understand how they can enhance the lesson and extend the lesson, how they can, get past that passive, just, oh, wow, this is a cool thing that I can watch perform for me or whatever. So a little bit of higher order thinking as the teacher is absorbing kind of an unknown future, because who knows what the next new tool is going to be.
Well, and I think that's the other part of this that is really like we've really matured, I think, as a profession over the last 10, 15 years, where it's like we don't have that skills gap anymore, where we have to do a workshop on this is how you build Google Slides. Here's how you do stuff. Here's, we've transitioned to now, okay, what does that look like when you're a reading teacher? You're teaching a reading class. And, what do I have the kids do rather than what do I do as the teacher to lead that learning? And then how am I engaging kids? How am I getting them to, because there's just that much more research, there's that much more experience, there's that much more just knowledge about how we can use this stuff, that it's not so much it shouldn't. If technology is an event, you're not doing it right. That's the whole reason we talk about technology integration, because it's a tool. We don't talk about pencil integration anymore, right? So, it's just one of those things that we like, it's woven into the fabric of the way that we do things. And when we have this way of talking about stuff, like that's really where we start making some of those gains and really start seeing the benefits of all of this training and all of this other work that we've done to learn how to do stuff. Now we get into the fun things.
Yeah, super exciting.
And I would imagine if you look back in the history of education, that's been a similar kind of pattern for any number of innovations in education in general, that we've gotten to that hump of we really need to push over and just start using tech for what it is, versus, like Jason said, being an event. And I think also a lot of our schools have gotten to the place where the infrastructure and the support pieces are there. COVID was not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it sure did push schools, even here at MLC, pushed us to really make good use of our learning management system. I've had a lot of profs say, wow, why wasn't I doing this all along? Why wasn't I utilizing Moodle for this or the other thing? And it took that shove to make that happen. So I think the pieces are there, and we're right at some schools are a little farther along than others, but we're right at the brink of being able to really harness what this technology means in our classrooms.
And maybe for those that aren't as far along, this very topic that we're on is kind of a foundational piece, like getting that common language, thinking that way, evaluating what you're doing in the classroom, how you're designing your lessons, with that upper right corner of the PICRAT tic-tac-toe board in mind or whatever.
And I think it's important to include those discussions when you're talking like your curriculum guide and doing your curriculum studies. If you have a separate technology curriculum versus having it, within all the other pieces, what does that look like? What are our expectations for our students? This does require a lot of superhuman strength and stamina to figure out how that works within the school. But it has to be done.
Good. A good place to kind of wrap up our discussion. Mr. Incredible was represented well with instructional design and looking at these different models. We'll have links in the show notes to those model images and other articles. I actually found a really good overview done by the PICRAT guy. I have his name right in front of me, Royce Kimmons. He actually has like a 4-minute video that was really great. Helped me understand it a lot better as well. So I'll put that YouTube video in the show notes as well. So thanks, you guys. Great conversation. We are going to move right into our ministry resource segment of the show. And having Rachel on gives us a good opportunity to feature something that Rachel's done that I think is a really useful ministry resource. Rachel, you have a Google site out there that's titled Bible Lesson Media Resources. Tell us about it. Tell us what's new about it.
Absolutely. So this is a great lesson in procrastination.
It's done now.
Well, yeah, I did this to procrastinate on my dissertation, but
it worked.
So it's great. So this website takes information from all over the place and just kind of pulls it together. This includes YouTube videos, pictures from free Bible images, some craft resources, and also some slide resources from some different teachers throughout the WELS. And so each lesson is linked, and it follows the Christ-Light, the titles found in the Christ-Light curriculum. And for each one of the lessons, I've gone through and found all the free Bible images, all the videos, and also linked to slide presentations, all sorts of different stuff. It was a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. I do have the disclaimer that I have not watched all of these videos because I like to procrastinate, but perhaps not quite that much. And so you do definitely want to watch them ahead of time. And I have links at the very, very bottom of the site for if you find one that you're like, oh, that really shouldn't be in there. You can link to that and let me know.
And you have it organized by grade level. So
yeah. So that was just, I did not realize until I started to look how very differently the different lessons were named among the different grades. And so it originally had just been built off of the first and second grade names because I taught first and second grade. But now they all still kind of go to the same place, but it'll help you find it quicker. If you're a fifth and sixth grade teacher, you'll be more familiar with the fifth and sixth grade lesson plans or lesson titles. What I am looking for in order to kind of expand this is to look at the seventh and eighth grade curriculum that is more based on different topics. Mm-hmm. And so if anyone's got resources for that they would like to share, please reach out. I would love to make a section of this website for those resources too.
Excellent. Well, thanks for all your work on this. Thanks for continuing to update it because it's been around for a little while, but it's even better now. So great stuff, Rachel. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And then that leads right into our tips and picks of the week. And actually, guests go first and ladies go first. So I think it's right back to you, Rachel, and you're going to tell us about this website that I can't pronounce.
Yes. So my pick this week is a tutorial building website called IORAD, which I actually learned about on TikTok. I am not too proud to admit that I watch TikTok and have found that there are you shaking your head at me, Jason.
It's just another means of procrastination. You're fine, Rachel. Like you'll get that dissertation done. It'll be good.
It's just going to be in late spring that it gets done.
I'm just saying between like your Christ-Light projects and your TikTok addiction, like we'll stage an intervention for you. It'll be fine.
Okay. I look forward to that. That'll be really fun. So yeah, I did find this on TikTok, and I make a lot of documentation around like using Moodle for our online learning platform and using other tools. And I do a lot of videos, and making those videos, especially when you want to like highlight things or blur out like student information or things like that can be really time consuming. This website, I don't know how it does it, but it's amazing. You launch the Chrome extension, and then whatever you're wanting to teach someone how to do, you do it. And then when you're done, you click done on the extension. It pushes you back to the IORAD site, and you get a click-by-click tutorial that you can edit, including it already adds like the little highlight boxes and the click here and all that kind of stuff for you. But if it's not quite right, which I've actually never really had it be not right, but if it's not quite right, you can edit it. It's got a really easy blur tool so that if there's student information there, I could just get rid of that right there. And then it also has text. It is written down, like click on, and it tells you what to click on, and you can edit all of that too. And then it has text to audio options so that whoever's watching it, they can just basically watch a video of it. They can watch step by step and follow along. They can go back and forth. It's just really amazing. And in August, we're going to be moving to Moodle 4, which will be kind of a biggish update. Yeah, don't give me that face, Jason. I'm afraid of it enough as it is.
Major versions are never fun.
And so I envision using this an awful lot. It's going to save so much time over what I would have done in something like Camtasia for adding all those pieces myself. It's fantastic. I love it.
Some serious AI. It's in tune with your brain and doing what you want it to do. My number one question is always, what's the price? And I see that it's free for personal. If you look at business, it gets to be really pricey really quickly.
Don't look at the business. Business is scary.
So $200 minimum per month, but when you switch to education, $10 per month for teachers and professors. So that's a pretty sweet price point compared to the business pricing that's there.
Right?
So
yes,
good stuff. The personal one is free, but those are all public. It says you can't privatize your tutorials if you go with the personal. So I know many people probably the personal would be enough to do a few quick things or whatever. But if you're like Rachel and redoing your Moodle site, maybe you're going to make a few of these and you don't want them to be public, then education pricing looks pretty sweet. Good stuff.
And you used to be able, with IORAD too, you used to be able to export your tutorial as a PDF as well. So like if you want to print it off or something like that, have a physical copy, you can do that as well. So yeah, it's pretty powerful tool.
So IORAD.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes. Thanks for bringing that, Rachel. Jason, I think I'm going to stop sharing and let you do a little screen sharing. Exciting.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. So this is my opportunity to brag a little bit on the weekend that we had. So my wife and I took a vacation. We did an island vacation, but in Wisconsin. So we went to Washington Island. And doing that kind of thing, you end up with a lot of pictures, right? So we while we were out there, we had this wonderful dock at the place that we were staying, but they had these dock lifts all over the place. So my pick this week is the automatic like eraser that comes with a Google One subscription, or I have a Pixel phone, so you can use that for free in Google Photos if you have that as well. So we have this great picture, right? Isn't she beautiful? And then there's that chump standing next to her. But then there's this big red thing over on the side. So I was able, with just right on my phone, I was able to say, hey, remove that obnoxious thing. And then the software like identified it, highlighted the whole thing, and then I could have tweaked it or anything. And then here's the result. You see that it's gone. And it does a pretty good job. Like it still could use a little bit of cleaning up. And if you look really closely at the part where it fixed, like, there's a little bit of a jigger right there. And then you can see, like, if you look really closely, this tree is duplicated 4 times. But, so it won't hold up to a ton of scrutiny or anything, but, if it's just showing up on my phone or like, going through on our little memories or anything, it does a pretty good job. So I was pretty impressed with this tool, and the way that worked. So my pick this week is Google photos and the automatic eraser or the magic eraser that is a part of that. If you have a Pixel phone again, or if you subscribe to Google One.
Good old Google comes through, huh? Even on
Every day.
vacation. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? All right. And that brings the show right around to me. And I'm going to have a pick this week as well. I'm going to share my screen to point at an Edutopia article I read recently, 5 tips for creating an effective virtual field trip. You know, Rachel, you mentioned earlier that COVID kind of pushed us over the hump with that integration of technology and instructional design. I would say it pushed us over the hump of virtual field trips as well, because we couldn't go anywhere. We could still reach out and talk to people virtually and experience things in that way. And there's a whole new world out there for virtual field trips. So the things you can incorporate in your classroom without having to leave the classroom. And this article just kind of walks you through the best ways to prepare your students to come up with virtual field trip ideas and prepare and get the most out of them. So obviously you're going to start by just what is it you're trying to teach and looking at your goals for learning and coming up with specific things that relate to that. I think the point of this first point here is that there's a lot of opportunity out there for that. And they specifically mention national parks, and the National Park Service has thousands of resources available. It's pretty incredible. I went through and I wanted to take a bunch of these virtual field trips as I was looking at this. So you can see things are categorized between lesson plans and materials for loan and professional development. And there's this one category, distance learning, field experience, those kind of things. And for some reason, I thought it specifically said field trips, but it's field experiences. There's hundreds of them out here. So there's also ways to break it down. Here's where I was reading field trips. So 474 field trips available through the National Park Service. You can go to specific locations. You can do it by grade level or by subject. Everything's just super organized and laid out for you with lots of resources to support. And this is just one place that's put the effort into organizing all these educator resources. There are others out there. There's others that are mentioned in this article, even if you surf on over. It says just reach out to people, because if you aren't finding a specific resource in a subject that you're trying to offer a field trip on, just make contact with people, and perhaps they'll do a Zoom call quite like this one and satisfy your virtual field trip needs as well. They suggest that you have the students build some background knowledge. So don't just hit it cold, but prepare them for where you're going to visit and what it's about and what you're going there to study and that kind of thing. Give them some research and time to learn a little bit about it. And actually then step 4 is to have them prepare some questions in advance. So again, it doesn't get to the question and answer session of the field trip and they are hitting that cold, but they've given it some pre-thought and have a list of questions prepared, and they get a lot more out of it. And that question and answer session obviously goes a lot more smoothly as they're prepared for that. And then finally, to finish up after the field trip with some post work. What did they learn? What things did they already know? What did they learn that was expanded their understanding? That kind of thing, so that they're applying what they saw and heard in the virtual field trip. So really great points in this article. I don't know if you guys have specific experience with virtual field trips, but I thought this was really good structure if someone's interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, the National Park Service, that's a really good tip, because every national park, it's in the law that they have to have those remote education opportunities, and very many of them are either no cost or very low cost. If people are looking for one, a really good experience is the Minuteman Missile Silo in North Dakota. They like the guy who runs those, like he takes you down into the silo. You get to see, it's really cool, like Cold War kind of experience that goes with that. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Sally, because there's just so many great opportunities for those kinds of interactions. And now that everybody's used to using tools like Zoom and Google Meet and all of that kind of stuff, it just lowers the bar for entry.
For sure. All right, I'm going to jump right to our community news and feedback section then. And today I'm going to feature one particular tool that we use for community feedback and conversation, and it's our WELSTech Google group. So you can join the group. There's 191 of us already in there. And basically you have the ability to send email to the group or post here on the group site online. And everyone gets that message and can reply easily. And you just get the group think on technology ministry topics that are of interest. And just this past week or two, it's been pretty busy there. So first up, we had a question from Gail Potratz, who's looking for school 3 to 5 year tech plans for discussion and learning material for a group of aspiring technology administrators. They were to come up with examples in her class that she's teaching, and they had a really tough time doing that. And some of the past plans seemed really out of date. And maybe this ties right into our instructional design kind of discussion, how in the past we used to say, we're going to teach technology and they're going to go to the computer lab and blah, blah, blah. And now it's very different when you talk about planning for school technology. And it's also kind of an unknown, because what will it be like 5 years from now? We just don't have any clue. But how do you plan for that as a school? So Gail's looking for those kind of resources. And so far, I don't think anyone's replied to that. So if you have some insight into that and want to share it with Gail, I did remember that we had a school technology planning area on our WELSTech wiki, but it hasn't been updated for quite some time. There are a few tech plans listed there, and also things like how to plan for how to do your tech plan, a rubric for things you want to make sure you're including and things. But again, I think a lot of this is more dated. You might find some things there that are helpful as a starting point, but if anybody's working on this or has great examples or quasi great examples, I'm sure Gail would appreciate any feedback, and the rest of us can learn from it as well. Next, did you guys have anything related to tech planning specific?
I actually had a question for Rachel on that one. Is that that tech planning or documentation of any of that stuff? Is that a part of the accreditation process? Do we have that built into WELSA?
Oh, sure. I don't think it doesn't say anything specifically about technology planning. I could be wrong about that. I don't have them all memorized, but there are parts of it that, with having a long-term plan and also having a technology curriculum, that would lead to having a tech plan of some sort.
Okay, so maybe a good topic loop in Paul Patterson on at some point and have that discussion with our WELSA experts. So from Synod. Good thoughts. Another thread of conversation over on the WELSTech Google group was Pastor Steve Daly asking for help with forcing a Chromebook update. And he got a couple of replies on and off the board, and he kind of replied back to what he was doing. Interestingly, it's not like a managed Chromebook, but just kind of a personal Chromebook, if you want to call it that. And things had gotten kind of out of date with the Chrome operating system, and he was having a challenge kind of getting it to power wash or whatever. So good advice there. And if you want to check out the thread, you might have some additional advice for Pastor Daly, or you might have the same problem and benefit from what was shared. And then finally, I just want to mention Martin is part of this podcast, because Martin has a topic out on the WELSTech Google group as well. So reporting on Martin's behalf, our technology office specifically has 2 openings currently. We're looking for a system administrator and a software product analyst. And those job descriptions are there on the Google group, or you can head out to our complete listing of WELS jobs. And it's a pretty long list. I was surprised how many openings there are across the Synod. I guess it's pretty reflective of job demands or employment demands nationally, because there are challenges everywhere, I think. But MLC has a lot of listings for different coaching positions, resource development manager, director of mission advancement at Luther Prep. And then there's our 2, software product analyst and system analyst. There's food service workers needed at the SIM. It's just a pretty lengthy list. So please do consider WELS if you're considering or looking for a new job opportunity. There are a lot of potential options out there. So check it out, and especially pay attention to our technology needs, because we'd love to have some new employees join our staff in WELS Technology. All right, guys, I think that's going to about wrap it up. We have successfully manned a WELSTech episode without Martin Spriggs, and we will be happy to welcome him back next time. That'll come up in just a couple of weeks before you know it, and we'll be back with more ministry technology topics to discuss. Meanwhile, we will say goodbye to Rachel and Jason for this week, and thank you both for your contributions. It was a great conversation today. It was incredible.
It was so incredible.
Superhuman.
Nice job, Sally.
All right. See you next time on WELSTech, folks. Thank you.
Bye.